Yeah, we're good. Okay, good morning. We are 29a in the middle of this question. Oh, thank you. In the middle of this question, that the Mishnah is repetitive, and therefore we said that the first part of the Mishnah is talking about mundane sacrifices that you're slaughtering, and there the majority, either by a bird of one and by an animal of two, is good. And the end of the Mishnah is talking about slaughterings, sacrificial offerings. Okay, so we are up to, which one are we up to? Yeah, we are up to Rav Papa Amar Reisha b'Chulin. The beginning part's talking about Chulin. Rav Papa Amar Reisha b'Chulin mehacha. From here I know. Oh, it's so far away. From here I know that we're talking about Chulin. The Katani. It's very stuffy in here. It's stuffy in here. I'm like schwitzing here. Turn the AC on. So Rav Papa said, Reisha b'chul mehacha. The Katani Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to do the jugular veins as well. Rabbi Yehuda Omer as havridin, and we established already that that's not because of a halacha of really shchita. That's more because by the birds you want the blood. And the Rabbanan argue, pligi Rabbanan leho. Well, hold on. If they argue about that point by regular offerings, I understand. Do you or do you not have to get all the blood out? Fine. Debate. Rabbi Yehuda says jugular veins, more blood comes out. Rabbis say no. But if you're arguing about Yamar Special Chulin, Yamar Special Bekachim, Amai Pligi, why would the rabbis argue on Rabbi Yehuda if that part of the Mishnah is discussing a sacrifice? Sacrifice, you want all the blood to come out. That's what you want. So it wouldn't make sense they would argue on him. From the fact that they argued on him in the first part of the Mishnah shows you that it's talking about a mundane offering and not a sacrificial offering, because there wouldn't be any logic to argue. They should both agree. You should get all the blood out. It's you need the blood by a sacrifice. So the more blood you can get out, the better. You can fill up your cup and put it on the altar. Squeeze them tight, exactly. The more the merrier. So, okay. So now, Rav Ashi Amar, he says at the end of the Mishnah is talking about sacrifices. From here, mehacha, the Katani, as it says, Ashoket Shnei Roshin Kachad, if it says in the next part of the next Mishnah, which often is viewed as the end, meaning often the Mishnahs were one long thing. They're one long list. Our Gemara divides it up. But so when it says the end of the Mishnah, it means the next Mishnah, which is considered the end of our Mishnah. So it says there you slaughter two heads at once. And one slice, you get both. Two for the price of one. So hopefully you sell it for the price of two. But two for the price of one. Shchitaso kshera. That's a good shchita. Now it says hashochet, one who does it. Sounds like the Ovid in the Chatilalo. Only one who does it, but ideally you shouldn't do it. Well, what are we talking about? It is talking about sacrifices. I understand why you shouldn't do two at once, because we have an exposition that says tizbechu shelo yihei echad shochet shnei zvachim. So that tizbach, the word tizbach is that one person should slaughter who? It should be it. So only one person should slaughter it and not both of them. Rav Kahana tizbehu ksiv. Rav Kahana says that we know there's a debate that you could do. What's the primary way of the word? The way it's written or the way it's read? So Rav Kahana says that tizbehu ksiv. It's written really like tizbacheyu, meaning when you read in the Torah, it says tizbachu. Under the ches are the three diagonal dots that make an oo sound. But he says tizbachehu ksiv, which means tizbachu, you shall slaughter it. Just one offering. One person slaughtering one offering. So now, the exposition tells you that, the derivation tells you that what? That you should only slaughter one offering and not two at a time. So now, if you look at Chilinami, if it's talking about dinner for tonight, so then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to slaughter two at once. Why not? As long as you did a kosher shechita, you're good to go. But if it's talking about sacrifices, we just told you that in sacrifices, the exposition says you should only do one and not two. The Af Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Savar, and even Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, Reisha b'Chulin, the Seifa b'Kachim. The beginning is talking about Chulin, and the Seifa is talking about sacrifices. The beginning is talking about mundane animals, and the end is talking about sacrificial animals, sacrifices. How do I know? Since it says that the majority, the end of the mission says the majority of one of the signs is like it, meaning it's considered like you slaughter the whole thing, and that part was repetitive. Lama Shaninu, if once it taught that, so why did it teach Rov Echad Ba'ov V'Rov Shnayim B'Behema? Once it taught that, so why did it teach? Yeah, sorry, that was the beginning of the Mishnah. The beginning of the Mishnah said, Rubo Shel Echad Kamohu. Majority is like it, meaning it's enough to slaughter the majority. So why did the end of the Mishnah repeat itself and say majority of one pipe by a bird and two pipes by an animal? That's repetitive. To teach you the following thing, that because we learned Lefisha Shaninu, we learned in Yuma, it says by the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, Hey Viyulo es Tamid. They brought the Kohen Gadol the Tamid. Now, what did he do? Let's say Kartzo. He made an incision. And Umeirik Acher. And another Kohen did the Shechita for him. I'm not remembering right now why this is necessary. 1 second. Right. Before. Oh, yeah. Go.
Immediately available to receive blood spreading from the upper and severed neck. Thus, once you perform a minimal valid shechita, he quickly take the bowl from receiving.
Exactly. Yeah, Steve was right. He had to run to get the bowl to catch some other blood. So he had a meeting. So So lefish shenin havilo as a tamen kartu merak acher shitas al yado yachol lo yehi merak yachol lo merak yehi pasal. You would have thought that even though the Kohen Gadol did the original incision, but if another Kohen didn't finish it off, you would have thought it would be invalid. Lekach shaninu. Therefore, we taught our Mishnah says rov echad ba'of and rov shnayim behema to teach you that To teach you that as long as the majority was cut, you are good to go. So it sounds like this incision was really the majority of a pipe. It wasn't a small little 2% of the shechita. It was this incision was 51%. Substantial, yeah. A substantial incision. Yeah. So you see from here the way Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish learns the end of our Mishnah is clearly talking about sacrifices because he's using our Mishnah to prove a point by Yom Kippur, sacrifices. So therefore you derive that the beginning of the Mishnah, which says a majority of a pipe by a bird and two by an animal is referring to mundane animals because the end of the Mishnah has been used in Yuma to teach you a halacha about sacrifices on Yom Kippur. Now, once we mention this part of Mesechus Yuma about Yom Kippur, so now the Gemara is going to digress for a second and ask, Amar Mar. So Master just told us, Yachol lo meirak yehei pasal. Why? If he didn't finish off the shechita, do the final 49%, it would be invalid. Why would it be invalid? What would be invalid about it? The Kohen Gadol did majority of the pipe. So why, if someone else doesn't finish it off, would it be considered invalid? Next page. Im kain havile avoda ba'acher. it sounds like then it would be considered like a service done by somebody else. V'tanya kol avodas Yom Kippur enak shares elabo, and all the Yom Kippur service is done through the Kohen Gadol. But this is done through the Kohen Gadol. 51% of the shechita, which a valid shechita, was done by him. So why in the world would it be invalid? So haki karma. This is what it means to say there be a rabbinic invalidation. Of course, biblically, it's still considered like the Kohen Gadol did the service, but rabbinically, it would be invalid. Why would it be invalid rabbinically? The Salkadai Techamina, you would have erroneously thought that there would be a invalidation rabbinically. Lekach shaninu rov echad rov v'rov shnayim v'behema. Now, why would you think that? Presumably because you would think that you'd have to do the entire. It's too close. If you're going to allow 51% that's considered valid, then he might not only do 48% or 40%. So you want to have the whole thing done. So that's what you would have thought. So that our Mishnah taught us that no, if you do the majority, it's good to go. But once, so we're saying now that like this, the Kohen Gadol does 51%. The other Kohen does the next 49. You would have thought that 51% of the Kohen Gadol would be invalid, even though it's a valid shechita. Why would you have thought that? Presumably because the rabbis would have made a decree that it's just too close. You're playing with fire over here. It's just do the whole pipe, and then you'll be on the safe side. You allow 51%. That's going to be very. That's going to be not exactly on your things that you want to do on Yom Kippur. Is now go find a new korban tamid, right? You're going to tone, then get out of there. So you would have thought there would be a rabbinic invalidation. Kamash Malon, we learned that there's no rabbinic decree. Once there's no rabbinic decree, so 1 second, why does the other Kohen have to finish off the shechita, the other 49%? If the Kohen Gadol did 51%, that's a valid shechita. There's no rabbinical decree. So why do we require another Kohen to go and finish off the pipe? So to that we ask, what is the point of finishing off the pipe? What's the point of another Kohen finishing off and cutting the entire pipe or pipes, bird or animal? To teach you that it's a mitzvah lamarik. It's a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to get the whole thing. So even though there's no rabbinic violation if you don't, but lots of blood, yeah. That's right. That's right.
Just thinking of the practical side of this.
Yeah.
Kohen Gadol finishes a little past the middle.
Okay.
The other Kohen takes over without moving the knife, so that
Oh, interesting.
that it's still a smooth movement without nicking somewhere else.
Right.
See, that'd be a good place to have security cameras, you know? Security cameras. Make sure it's exact. You stop them on the screen.
Yeah, but that's after the fact. That doesn't help you.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, I was saying they had to learn what to do. Do a lot of practice. Okay. Now we have a interesting topic, and it's when you do shechita. So at what point do you consider it a shechita? So shechita means a slaughter, a halakhically valid slaughter. So do you say that it's only? We would have thought probably we would have think that it's only called a shechita when you finish the job. Until you're done, it's called, I don't know, cutting, but it's not called shechita. That's what you would have thought. Or do you say, no, the whole process is called shechita. From the beginning to the end, you're involved in a shechita. We don't just wait till the end to call it a shechita. What's the difference? Don't worry, we'll see. So Amar of Shimon ben Lakish, Mishum Levi Saba. He said in the name of Levi the elder. I guess he didn't mind being called the elder. Yeah. So Eina l'shchita ala b'sof. So Rav Shimon ben Lakish says in the name of Levi, shchita is only considered a valid shchita at the end. It's not called a shchita until the end. Until then, it's called cutting, or it's called the prereq for shchita. But it's not shchita until the end. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, no. Yesh al shchita mitchil v'atzof. The entire process is called slaughtering. You're slaughtering from A to Z is called slaughtering. Okay. Now we begin trying to figure out where exactly is this debate going to have a practical ramification. So you're going to have to help me a little bit because at the bottom I got a little stuck. So, which is okay. So Amar Rava Hakol Modim. Everyone agrees. Heicha de Shachat Simin Echad Ovid Kochavim. Everyone agrees if one of the pipes was cut by a non-Jew, v'simen echad Yisroel, and another one was cut by a Jew, shehi psula. That is going to be invalid. Why? Shaharei naseba ma'isa treifa biyad obed kochavim, because it became a treifa in the hand of an idolater, in the hand of a non-Jew, and therefore there's no way it's going to be valid. Okay, so be'olas ha'of nami, and we're going to agree that by an olas ha'of, so a fully consumed bird offering, so heicha demolik simen echad lamata v'simen echad lamala. So there's that red line, that red line going around the altar. So if you did malika one pipe on top of the altar, on the higher part, and then you walk down to the lower part, that's going to be psula. Why? The olas ha'of is supposed to be on top, and the chatas ha'of is supposed to be on the bottom. So even though you did one pipe on top and one pipe on the bottom, but at the end of the day, you did something in the place of a chatas ha'of. You did something in the wrong place, and since you did something in the wrong place, then that's going to be invalid. Now, the chatas, you only have to slaughter. You only have to cut through one pipe. The ola, you have to cut two pipes. So you could have thought, if not for this Gemara, you could have thought that it all depends where you cut the last pipe. And, or you could have thought it depends, that the first pipe is above, so it should be good. But we're saying that since a chatas ha'of is only a one pipe procedure, and you do that on the bottom, not the top of the altar, since you did something with the ola where the chata should be done, that's considered an invalidation. Okay, so lo nechlechu, where do they argue? Ela kigon sheshachat simen echad b'chutz v'simen echad b'fnim. You do one pipe outside the courtyard and one pipe inside the courtyard. So now, leman da'amar yeshna l'shchita mitchila v'atsof. Now, presumably here also you have to bring it in right away. You must be standing right at the border, because if you wait too long, it's also not going to be valid shechita. You can't wait too long. So,
running off the blood.
You did one pipe was slaughtered outside and one was inside. So now, we know that you can't slaughter outside the prescribed area. So if you start a slaughtering outside, a shechita, and you finish it inside, so then what's going to happen? Since the entire process, according to the second opinion, according to Rava, is called shechita, so when you began the slaughter outside the temple, when you began that slaughter, that's considered already shchutei chutz, a slaughtering done outside the prescribed area, and therefore it's going to be in invalidation. If you only considered valid shechita once you finish, where did you finish? You finished inside. So therefore, lo mechayiv. Therefore, you are not going to be liable for shchutei chutz. So that would be right now a going practical difference between the two opinions. If you do half of it outside, half of it inside, so is that considered valid or invalid? Correct. That's right. The Kahana made color war. This is what would happen.
Bleeding,
The door was as big.
Yeah. So Amar Lei. Now, once again, you use the extreme out there cases to get the principle. And the principle can apply in a million cases. We're trying to find the difference so we can see, yeah. Okay. So Amar Lei Rabbi Bar Simi. So he disagrees with this. He holds, even if you hold that the shechita is only considered a shechita at the end of the shechita process, if you do half of it outside and half of it inside, it's still going to be invalid. Let's see why. Amar Bar Simi Marlo Amar Hachi Master never said this. He disagrees. Who's master? Umanu, Rav Yosef. Heicha deshachat simin echad b'chutz. If you slaughter one pipe outside, the simin echad b'fnim, nami pasol, that's also invalid. Sheharei asa b'maisa chatas ha'of b'chutz. Because once again, let's say you're involved in an ola, you have to do 2 pipes. But a chatas only requires 1 pipe. So you did 1 pipe outside, which that by a chatas, it's all you need. And therefore, even though you're doing an ola, it's still considered invalid. The logic I didn't fully understand. Maybe they have a footnote to explain. You're not involved in a chatas ha'of. You're involved in let's say an ola ha'of, which requires 2 pipes. But since what you would have done by a chatas would be invalid, even by the ola ha'of, it's considered invalid. Yeah. What did you say?
So it's a little vague.
No 13.
Yeah. I was 100% sure.
They get the libel for
Yeah. So okay. So lo nechlaku ella. Where is the debate between Levi and Rava? Kigon sheshachat miut simanim b'chutz v'gamru b'fnim. So the debate is where you slaughtered miut simanim b'chutz v'gamru b'fnim. How do they translate here? Miut simanim.
A little bit.
Meaning not 1 pipe versus 2 pipes, but the lesser part of a pipe. Yeah. So the lesser part of a pipe on the outside, and then you finish it off on the inside. So now, the beginning, the first 20% was on outside. That's not called the shchita. So that's not called the shchita outside the courtyard. But since 80% was on inside, you're good to go. But if you say the whole process is considered shchita, so then you definitely began some of the process outside, and for that you are going to be liable.
One thing doesn't matter outside, then you go inside, you real. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh no, it doesn't matter. It's the beginning of the pipe. Yeah, the part that's not a necessity or whatever. I don't know how to say it. The part that's doesn't kill the animal. So okay. Now Rabbi Zera has a difficulty with this. Masiv Rabbi Zera. So now we're going to travel over to other parts of different laws. So Masiv Rabbi Zera, he says, Kol ha'asukin bepara mitchila v'atzov. Anybody involved in the paraduma process from beginning to end, his clothing is going to get impure. Right? This is part of the novelty. The people that are causing impurity, they themselves become impure. So uposlin osa b'malacha acheres. If you do something else while being involved in the paraduma, if you involve the paraduma in another job, let's say while you're in Rashi's case, while you're shechting the animal, you're also cutting gourds. So that's going to invalidate the shechita of the paraduma. How exactly are you shechting it and cutting gourds? That's a good question. Maybe right afterwards you cut gourds. The point that you can't do anything else. If you're only involved in the paraduma, you'll only be doing work for the paraduma. If you do other work, so then it's going to invalidate the paraduma, and then it's not going to contaminate your clothing. So, does it say what the case is? Like cutting gourds or something? Meaning right afterward you went to cut gourds instead of focusing on the para? It doesn't mean simultaneously.
No, it's pretty much the same as you shift two at the same time.
Oh, so you're doing it at the same time.
So you've got basically you've got your para and you've got your
Gourd.
gold, right? You know, as you slice, you
Halloween's coming. Here. So okay. So you cut at the same time. So any job that's done with the paraduma is going to invalidate the paraduma. So now if that happens, so then so now iraba psul b'shchitasa. Let's say there's an invalidation with the shchita. Bein kodem psula, bein la'achar psula. If it happens, whether it happens, I mean, let's say there's an invalidation and it causes the paraduma to be a nevela. So iraba psul b'shchitasa bein kodem psula bein la'achar psula. Whether it's before you finish the slaughtering, after you finish the slaughtering, it becomes a nevela at some point. So then, eina matama begadim, eina matama begadim behazah. So then, when you sprinkle the ashes, that's not going to impurify your clothing. However, kodem psula metame. Sorry, so that's that. Kodem psula metame begadim la'achar psula eino metame begadim. So if before you finish the shechita, there's something wrong with the animal, so then one second. Koda means before the shechita.
Circumstance during slaughtering, which is before validation, and
Good. Thank you. Yeah, so the guy that served before it became invalid, so his clothing is going to be, so the guy was involved in paraduma before it became invalid, so then his clothing will be invalid. The guy that served afterwards, his clothing will not be invalid. So now, says the Gemara like this. If this is true, that the entire process is considered shchita, from the beginning of the cutting till the end, so liflug nami b'shchitasa, then why did the Mishnah say a case, or the Brisa say a case of an invalidation with the paraduma? Give a more specific case. If there was an invalidation in the shchita, you should say liflug nami b'shchitasa. Also, you should teach a case of an invalidation with the shchita. Iraba psul b'shchitasa. So before you found that invalidation, metame begadim. La'achar psula eina metame begadim. And after the shechita, if it becomes invalid, then it's not going to cause impurity to your clothing. So why didn't you say a case of? You only said a case of if it becomes invalid at some point. Why didn't you also say a case of invalidating with? Why didn't you also say a case that if you found the invalidation before the shechita or after the shechita? Like if it became an nevela. Meaning, the case the Mishnah gave is that you did work with it. You cut a gourd at the same time. Why not give a case of it became an nevela? Why not teach that case? So, yeah. So to that, Amarava niskalkala shchita ka'amris. The case of shchita, when it ends up being an avela, is a bad case. Why? Shiny hasam digali muslim afred lav shchita he klal. The case of a gourd, so the shchita was good. You end up also cutting a gourd at the same time. So that's invalidation. But if it turns out that the animal's an avela, so if an animal's an avela, so it turns out that it was never a good shechita to begin with. So if that's true, so then of course the guy's clothing is not going to become impure because it was never a good shechita to start with. So don't tell me I should have taught a case of invalidation before or after the shechita, because even if it's after the shechita, it's going to tell me that retroactively the whole thing was not good. One second. One second. So it's like, why? What does this have to do with exactly that there's shechita from beginning to end? Why are we pinning on that opinion?
Wherever the slaughter is actually complete, Rabbi Yochanan maintains the entire act from beginning to end is shechita.
Okay, therefore.
Therefore, you do.
So meaning, if you hold that it's considered shechita from beginning till the end, then it was never good shechita. But if you only found shechita at the end, so then what? If you only hold shechita at the end and not in the beginning, and then it's found to be a nevela, so then what? It would be a good shechita? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, see for a second. 1 second. So, okay, fine. If at any point during the paraduma service it became invalid, so the one beforehand is going to be impure, the one after is not going to be impure. Fine. So then we say behazasa. If there was some invalidation when there was sprinkling, I don't know if I might have skipped this. When they were sprinkling, so then once again, if the person involved in the paraduma before the sprinkling, he'll still be impure. The person involved after the sprinkling, where the invalidation was found, so then he's going to be pure. Yeah. So an invalidation during the sprinkling would be that if during the cow sprinkling, the person performed another task. So he went and did something else at the same time as the sprinkling. So that's invalid. Fine. To that we ask, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, that a shechita is considered from beginning to end. So then we have another case to distinguish. Not only an invalidation, not only sprinkling, but a third case. That if there was an invalidation during the slaughtering, so then, yeah, so let's say there was an invalidation during the slaughtering. So, halfway through, there was something that invalidated it. So now say the same thing. The guy doing the shechita beforehand, his clothing will be tameh. The guy doing it after, I don't know what, you switch people in the middle. No, like this. Sorry. Like this. Before the shechita, it's one. The whole thing is considered shechita from beginning to the end. So, let's say halfway through it becomes invalid. So, someone involved in the paraduma, let's say, does another task, not regarding the paraduma. So that caused invalidation. So, if he does it before, he does it in the middle of the. So, I'm doing another task. Jules is doing the shechita. So, since it's all considered shechita. So let's say the whole thing takes, 15 seconds. So let's say at the seventh second, you found invalidation. So if I was involved in something else before that, invalidation, so when I did my thing, it was still good. It was a good shechita. So my clothing should still become impure because I was invalid. It should become pure because I did it I was involved in something while the shechita was still good. Versus somebody who did something incorrect, like did a job that he wasn't supposed to, but he did it after the invalidation. So then that's already after the 7th second, let's say, second 8 to 15. So then that would be considered that he did something invalid during a incorrect shechita. So if you hold it's one long process, you can differentiate when did we find this guy to be invalid? before the invalidation or after. If it's just at the end, you can't differentiate in time like that. So that's what we're saying. Let that be another distinction. So yeah. So to that, Rava says, no, listen, what's the invalidation by shchita? That it became an avela? Let's say the animal just ended up becoming an avela, before you finish the shchita. Before you finish, it just became a total, it died preemptively. If that's true, so then it comes out that it was never a good shchita to begin with, and therefore, retroactively, the guy that did something invalid from seconds 1 to 7 is also going to be his clothing will be pure because we now see retroactively that it was never a good shchita to begin with. So even if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, even if you hold that it's a shchita from beginning to the end, but if the problem is a invalidation in the animal during the shchita, such as it preemptively dies and it's an avela, so then retroactively we see that anybody involved in the paraduma process, he's going to be pure, not impure, because it was never a good shchita. And if it's not a good shchita, then it's not considered a paraduma halachically.
Two ideas with different.
Correct. So Amar Rava says, "I kasha li ha kasha li." You want to ask a kasha? This is the kasha for me. If you want to ask a kasha on me, ask it like this. That leman the Amar Eina l'shchita ela b'sof, the opinion that holds, which is him. No, sorry. According to Rava, he says, if you want to ask the kasha like this. The one who holds on the Amar Eina l'shchita ela b'sof, that it's only shchita at the end, Levi's opinion. So liflog be hechshera depara. You should argue about the validity of the paraduma. Meaning, let's see the case. Kigon, for example, the shachtua betray gavri. It was slaughtered with 2 people, and it's only considered a shchita at the end. According to that, gavra kama lo metama. The Gavra Basar Matama. The first guy who did the shchita, he did, let's say, the first pipe, and then pass on that to the next guy. So, and then the second guy does a shchita, and then it's found to be, and then there's an invalidation that happened. So, the hechsher the par. There's no invalidation. Guy A, Reuven shechs 1 pipe, Shimon shechs the other pipe. Halach is anybody involved in the process of the paraduma, his clothing becomes contaminated. However, the guy involved in the pipe number 1, Reuven, that's not considered a shchita. Shchita is only called shchita at the end. So what should happen is if 2 people do a shchita, a slaughtering on the paraduma, Reuven's clothing should be pure, Shimon's clothing should be impure. That's what should be. So to that we say, Amar of Yosef, Trey Gavre, Pechad Zivcha Kamers. What do you mean? 2 people slaughtering 1 animal. So do you not hold of the following? Bar Minei Dehahud, the Tanina, we had this earlier. Tizbach shall you Shnaim Shoktan says Tizbach, you should slaughter 1 person, not 2 people. Zevach Echad, Tizbachu shall you Echad Shoket Shnei Zvachim. You should slaughter it, that 1 person should slaughter 1 offering, not 2 should slaughter 1, or 1 should slaughter 2. V'amar Rav Kahana, Tizbachehu ksiv. You go after the way that it's written, so you don't say Tizbachu, Tizbachehu, which means Tizbachu, you shall slaughter it. Not they should slaughter it, or you should slaughter them. It's 1 person slaughters 1 offering. So Amar Le'abaye, Lav Itmar Allah, Amar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zu Divrei Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Stimta. That's the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, Stimta, meaning that Stimta means anonymous, because there are many Mishas and Brisas that are in the name, they're anonymous, but it accords with the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon. So a lot of times the Mishnayos and the Brisas would be left anonymous. So this teaching of only 1 person slaughtering is an anonymous teaching, and therefore it is, which means it follows the opinion of Rabbi Lazar in the name of Reb Shimon. That's his opinion. However, You could have two people slaughtering one offering, no problem. So you tried to tell me that it's impossible to have a case of two people doing one slaughtering. I told you that's an anonymous teaching, which goes like Rabbi Gleizer. The rabbis argue and say that two people could do one slaughtering, not a problem. Now, according to the opinion that says they can't, Rabbi Gleizer, Rabbi Shimon Nami, Liflok Kigon, you can even find a case, according to him, the Shachar Chad Gavra, Bishnei Sudarim. There's one guy shechting, and he's in the middle of the shechita, the guy comes, takes off his kippah, gives him a new kippah. So, according to the rabbis that say two people could slaughter, we have a question. There should be a difference. The first guy does the first pipe, he should be pure. Second guy does the second pipe, he should be impure. That's one question. Why don't we say that case? But even according to Rabbi Gleizer, who says only one guy can do the slaughtering, I also have a case for you where he does one pipe and then someone switches his kippah, puts on a new hat. So now the first one, if shechita is only a shechita at the end, the first kippah should be pure because it's not considered shechita yet. And the last and the second kippah should be impure. So the Sudar Kamala Matama, Sudar Basra Matama. So says the Gemara, hold on, we're not talking about the kshera of the parah, we're talking about invalidation. You're giving me cases where nothing wrong happened. And you're saying, look, I found you a difference. According to Levi, these cases should be different. Why didn't the Mishnah mention these cases? The answer is the Mishnah was only talking about invalidations. Cases where you did everything right, and you want to tell me that the first pipe, the first guy is pure, second pipe, second guy is impure, first hat is pure, second hat is impure. Those are cases where nothing went wrong. This Mishnah is only, the Bryce is only talking about where something went wrong, when something went wrong. So it says, Ella b'psul depar kamairi behechshera lo kamairi. We're not talking about where nothing went wrong. We're talking where there was an invalidation. And there we differentiated if you were involved before the invalidation or after the invalidation. But where nothing went wrong, we weren't talking about that at all. And therefore, there's no rebuttal. There's no question on Levi's opinion that shechita is only valid at the end of the shechita.